whatever. Speaking of buying sticks, okay, Sean.
Yep.
Before we even get deep, and I really want to talk to you and your fatherhood stuff, your coaching stuff. But tell me the story. This is your secret of the day. You always have to bring a secret to Secrets from the Inside. That's your train ticket, right? Tell me about buying a car from Wayne Gretzky, and you take all the time you want. Buying a used car from Wayne Gretzky.
Well, as my collecting evolved and I guess I got well known in the hobby world as a high level collector of Wayne Gretzky memorabilia. Um, People start to contact me, to sell things, or if they find something in the closet that they remember being given in the 80s and they want to sell it to me, things like that. And one reason I've always been so public about my collecting, and I've always done radio shows and interviews and things like that, is for that very reason. Because the more people know about you as a collector, the more they'll come to you, if they want to sell something. And that's kind of was a strategy in building my collection, was being very public. So one day I got a call from a guy in Edmonton who was Wayne's business manager and business partner on ventures through the 80s in Edmonton. And, basically he said, I have Wayne's 1986 Mercedes 560 SL hardtop convertible that Wayne had in 1986. He says, I have all the documentation that goes with it. And he said, when Wayne was done with the car, he says, I took the car. He said, I loved the car. He said, I drove the car, but my wife and I are retiring and we're downsizing and we're going to get a new car. We're at that stage in our lives. Would you be interested in buying the car? And it was like, wow, of course I would. That's such a unique, obscure item to be asked if I'd be interested in having. Excuse me. So we set the deal up and I went and I picked up this car. And it was a well used but well maintained blue convertible sports car. And it was like a tank. It was a heavy, heavy car, but it was a beauty. Um, so the first thing I wanted to do was have it restored. Oh, and by the way, one thing to make the deal happen, I said, well, I want all the documentation that goes with it. So the guy provided me with, the folder, the bill of sale, everything from the original purchase of the car. Plus, he had a letter of authenticity written on the car, listing the serial number and whatnot, written in the hand of Wayne, and Wayne signed it Wayne D. Gretzky. He only signs D. Gretzky in his contractual things. That's the only way he ever uses the initial. So, in any event, it came with this letter of authenticity that I was just very happy to get. But I wanted to restore the car. So I had it packed up in Alberta and shipped out to Vancouver to a place called Chaotic Customs. And I said, clean up the car. So they redid the interior, they painted it original color and everything again, even though it was in fantastic shape from a paint perspective. But the car came back to me a couple of months later in showroom condition. Um, so I drove the car. I had a custom license plate made for it that says WAS 99S, which reads was 99s. So I continued to drive the car for a few years. And then, um, 2010, I got called one day by the Edmonton Kinsman Group. And they said, listen, we're doing this big dinner, 1,500 guests. Wayne's our keynote speaker. And we want you to bring your collection to Edmonton and put it on display for our 1,500 guests to see. And Wayne wants to see it before the show opens to the guests. So, um, so began this journey of me cataloging my collection, having storyboards built for every single piece, having custom display cases built for every single piece, and the journey to this dinner began. So, fast forward a couple of months, a few months or whatever, and I loaded up 2 trucks and 2 trailers and some friends, and headed to Edmonton with my collection. We spent a day putting it on display, about 10 of us. We set up this amazing display, um, like looked like the Hall of Fame, the Gretzky Hall of Fame in there when we were done. And the last thing, it was a linear display. So we had a starting point to go to tour through the whole collection. And the last thing in the display was the car and a massive storyboard talking about the car and with photographs and everything. So Wayne comes in and we start the tour of my collection. And we get through the collection and we're talking about sticks and we're talking about rings and trophies and equipment and whatever else I had belonged to the guy. And we get near the end of the display and the car is there. And he immediately wanted to know where I had the car cleaned up, we'll say, and how much it cost and all that stuff. And he was really taken back with the car again all of a sudden. So this is like, you know 25 years later, that he had last seen the car or used the car, and he had a lot of questions about the car. And through Darren, his business manager and
It
assistant at
was
the time,
Darren Blake,
he
right?
said,
Darren Blake. Nice guy.
correct, yeah,
Nice
yeah,
guy.
very nice guy. He said, we want to buy the car back. Excuse me. And I said, well, it's not for sale. I'm not selling the car. They said, no, come on, Wayne wants to buy the car back. And I said, well, I don't want to sell the car. So anyway, we walked away from that, and for 2 years, then every now and then I'd get a message from Darren or a phone call. You want to sell that car yet? Wayne wants the car. So after 2 years of them asking, I finally said, okay. I don't know why the hell he wants the car back, but he obviously wants it for a reason. I'll sell him the car back. So he said, okay, what's the price? I gave him the number, and literally 48 hours later, FedEx knocked on my door with the check for the car. And then a couple days later, a transport showed up and said, we're here for the car that's going to California. And that was the end of the car.
Gee, so he chased it for 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you gonna reveal the secret from the inside? You don't have to. What did he pay? Boy, you're talking to an old car guy here, Sean. This is the greatest thing in the world. This was the greatest story in
It
the
was very
world I
cool.
ever heard.
think I think I have a photocopy of the check in the file. I think it was around 50 grand.
I'm curious, can you guys just walk me back through 1986? What was going on in Wayne's world at that time? And the car. Let's just connect those two. Was this like one of his first big purchases, or did you find out why and what about the car was so sentimental to him to chase after it?
Well, in '86, Wayne was in, the at the top of his game. I think he was putting up 200-point seasons in the mid '80s, winning Stanley Cups. He was everywhere. Everything in Alberta was Wayne, 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 Wayne. Everything in hockey was Wayne. Um, so he was, the heart and soul and the face of hockey, so to speak, in those days. And I think a lot of um, companies, tried to get him to endorse their products, of course. And I think I don't know this for a fact, but I think that was part of the arrangement. I know for a fact the car wasn't one of the 21 cars that he won over his career, at All Star games and things. So I think it was probably just some type of endorsement arrangement where they got Wayne in their product in Edmonton, shooting around the streets of Edmonton in a convertible with their brand on it. As to why he wanted it back, I think that will always be a mystery because it was never revealed to me, even though I asked the question or alluded to wanting to know why. It was never revealed,
You
but
know,
he wanted it
Sean,
bad.
it's interesting. I think that's human nature. I've always said in my very first book, it was called Secrets from the Inside. It was about the auto industry. And I said, there's a real emotional attachment that people have with their automobiles. and
Right.
especially nothing against Alberta, but especially in the United States, of course. But it's your horse down here. It's your horse is an automobile. And I'm going to go off of memory here, but it's like Americans are known for falling in love with their trades, and
Right.
nowhere is and nowhere is the relationship whatever more poignant when it comes to say goodbye. And I think I always used to say to people, if you're trading a used car, get ready to resell it. Make sure you detail it, and or do the fixes that you did on it. I mean, you want the big fix, big beautiful fix. But make sure, and because so many times people, when they just detail and clean up their own car, they fall in love with it again. And I would
Absolutely.
wager there was an element of that. Is it was the refurbishment that you did. You made this car look probably like Wayne had never seen it before. And as they say, he fell in love all
Right.
over again.
Yeah. And I mean, he had the means to pursue it, so why not?